Hi everyone, let me just turn on my light. Sorry. How do I look? Okay. Whoops. Yeah. Okay. So this actually happened on Sunday. This came out in Straits Times. It said Singapore's married women have less sex than desired, according to a study. And let me look for the study. Sorry. So I actually it's in Straits Times. However, because they have this filter thing, if you are not a paid premium member, you don't get to read the whole article. So let me summarize this. And I'm sure you will be able to find this article if you do a deep enough search, look for one of the shadow websites, which I managed to download the article. So I'm quoted in this article. I'll come to that. So let me summarize. Singapore's married women have less sex than desired, according to this study. And it said married women in their peak childbearing age here have less sex than they desire. So of course, this is an issue because our fertility rate in Singapore is very low. We are not procreating our own population. Instead, what we are doing is we are letting in a lot of migrants, and which I don't really see what's the issue. The Singapore that I see now is very different from the Singapore that I knew growing up. Okay, so this has significant bearing on the length of time they take to get pregnant. If you're not really having sex, then you are less likely to get pregnant. That's pretty obvious. So because this is the exact population that Singapore is interested in, people who are married as opposed to single women who want to have children. So the politically correct population that they are looking at, and which this study surveyed these women. So women who are married in their peak childbearing ages, according to this report. Between 25 to 29, so below 30, have an average of 3.7 times a month. That's less than 4 times a month. That's less than once a week. And those who are between 30 and 34 have sex 2.6 times on average a month. That's less than 3 times a month. And so if you are below 30, they're having sex less than 4 times. And if they're above 30, they're having sex less than 3 times. I mean, I'm just summarizing. And so they actually surveyed about 600, they surveyed 657 women, that's 650. 650 is, you can say it's a big or small population. And I found that 15% of the couples do not have sex at all during the 14 weeks of the study. So 14 weeks is 3 months. So 15% of the couples did not have sex for 3 months, more than 3 months. And so among those who do have sex, about 1 in 4 would conceive within the 3 months. So if you're not having sex, you won't have a child. Or you can go for IVF or IUI. And this is pretty, in her independent study, the first in Singapore, the coitus frequency of married women at their peak childbearing, to understand the effects of stress and fatigue on their sex lives. And according to this study about the sexual frequency, first of all, it affects the marital quality and satisfaction. Are you even happy in your marriage? That's the first thing. The second thing is, as you get older, this affects the fertility. And I really don't know why they needed to do this study. I guess they were commissioned by the government. And being researchers, they just have to keep researching. And since Singapore is concerned about their fertility, then they need to come up with a related study to get funding of some sort. And how is this new to me? This is not new. So when Straits Times contacted me to give a quote for this study, I gave this quote. Relationship counselor. Notice they dropped my title, clinical sexologist. So I'm not a clinical sexologist according to them. I am a relationship counselor and clinical sexologist. They drop clinical sexologist. So relationship counselor, Mata Tara Lee. By the way, Straits Times will also drop doctor because that's what they do. That's their house style. Okay, relationship counselor Mata Tara Lee, who provides sexuality and intimacy coaching, said that many of our clients report having less sex than they would like due to long working hours. Most of my clients, they not only work long hours, they are tired when they get back home. They need to sleep for the next day. And those who do have kids have to supervise their kids with their homework. So then they have to settle down things around the house, cooking, cleaning, ironing, washing up, and then the kids, if they have kids. She suggested that couples schedule time for intimacy and make it a priority. Unfortunately, a lot of couples see scheduling sex as unromantic. And if we can schedule everything in our lives, including the time we go to the gym, what time we wake up, what time we boil our eggs, or whatever it is that you eat for breakfast, how is it that we don't schedule something that is important when everything else takes a more important um, um, if if more things if things are being done in our lives because they are urgent, then we are not really focusing on things that are important. So having sex may not be urgent as adults who have self-control. Then when do we get to focus on what's important? So then I suggested in this quote, couples can text each other to check in during the day to see if they can get back home earlier, to check their energy levels. Then I also said in this article, it's also important to simplify your life as much as possible and try not to squeeze too much into your schedule so that you have more time for each other. A lot of couples, they work Monday to Friday, they come home late, they're tired, they want to sleep, they want to prepare for the next day. And then on weekends, they have gatherings with friends and with their parents, their in-laws. Then they have to keep catch up with the laundry, the marketing. They have to maybe fulfill other duties like go to church or like bringing their kids to tuition if they have kids. So they are actually very, very busy. And it is true in this article, Professor Tan Po Ling says there's no easy solutions. It's not easy. It is really not easy. My clients don't find easy. Suggest that our high stress, high fatigue lifestyles are not compatible with healthy marital sex lives and can weaken marriages and increase the risk of fertility. If you're stressed, you're less likely to be able to get pregnant. That's true. So the solution, according to Professor Tan Po Ling, is fewer working hours and more flexible work arrangements may not do enough to address the core issues of stress, which is the pressure to visibly meet or exceed work performance expectations. Just because we work very hard, it doesn't mean that we are working very smart. And even if we are working very hard, it doesn't mean that working hard will necessarily get the results depending on circumstances that are beyond our control, like market conditions, for instance, like the economy. Like this is not the purchasing cycle of clients. And so it is not true that giving less work hours and more flexible work arrangements can help in the first place. Singapore has come some way in becoming more flexible with work arrangements. However, people don't really have that many places that offers flexible work arrangements, and it's really the MNCs. So it is very, very tough to be in Singapore. I'm a Singaporean, born and bred Singaporean, and I see enough clients to know how challenging it is for them. And so if you think about it, let me summarize. They work late, Mondays to Fridays. Then on weekends, they are busy. So when can they schedule sex? When can they squeeze in sex? When then can they be rested enough to feel yummy, juicy, sexy, and horny, rather than like a 5-minute masturbation or wank in the bathroom? when can they have that? Where is the window of sex? What about those who live with their parents, who are waiting for their BTO, that's built on demand housing? When can they have sex? So how is this surprising? Because I've known this for 10 years, that most of my clients can have at most sex twice a week, at most. And even that is such a huge conversation, because say if one of the person with the vagina is having her period, then that's 1 week of no sex. Haha, maybe that's the reason why they are having less than 4 times a month. Math. Okay, so anyway, if they can't have sex on weekdays and then they wait until weekends and they have other things that is in the schedule, it is going to be rushed, it's going to be stressful, and so on and so forth. Okay, so having said all that about the challenges and the issues and the frequencies, breaking it down to the possibility of even people avoiding sex during periods, another thing that I want to highlight here, which I did contribute to Straits Times, which was not covered, because there's probably space constraints in the article, so much information, and then like additional things that Martha wants to say but doesn't get published. So this is what I wanted to say. Thank you for watching, if you've reached this point in the video. So what I want to say is, just because we have more sex, it doesn't necessarily mean that we will be happier. Remember, the word is desire. Desire. They would like to have. You know, Chinese, there's this saying, 想要可是做不到，心有余力不足. That means the body is weaker than the mind. The mind wants a lot, desire. So desire doesn't necessarily mean unhappy. Unhappy is not even just the desire, not even the need. It's like minus, 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 minus. That is like deprivation. We're talking about desire. So who wouldn't want to have more sex? If you don't have to work, if you don't have to eat, sleep, and clean, then yeah, if life doesn't happen, then all of us would be doing what we really, really want to do, which is not work and maybe go on holidays all the time. So it doesn't necessarily mean just because they would like to, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're unhappy. And in fact, I was going to tell Straits Times, and I did tell Straits Times, not covered in this article because there are space constraints, I'm sure, is that actually there have been studies that show that most couples internationally, they do have sex once a week, especially people in long-term relationships. Here you are talking about couples in their childbearing age, so they probably haven't been married for a really long time. Most couples start to think about having babies 1, 2, 3 years into their marriage. So the government is very concerned about this, because even the people who are at the most optimum age to have kids are not having kids because they don't have time, because they're tired, they're stressed, and their lifestyle doesn't allow that, and it's not their fault. It's a lot of pressure with the market forces and economy wanting to just keep their job. And just because they would like to, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're unhappy. I just mentioned, but internationally, worldwide, actually a lot of couples worldwide in long-term relationships are having sex once a week. There was even a study that showed that couples who have sex every 10 days are the most happy. The reason is because if you're in a long-term relationship and you have other things going on in your life, there is kind of like a high, and then there's a kind of a low, like your body starts to crave sex. So if you kind of catch that tide of craving sex just before it goes to zero, you know, they say absence makes the heart fonder. Just because you love something, you like something, you desire something, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to have it all the time. And if you have it all the time, you actually get sick of it. So what ends up happening with couples in long-term relationships is that just before it gets to that state of like low, every 10 days is apparently the optimal period where couples are still happy. They still feel this emotional, sexual connection with their partner. And this was not mentioned in Straits Times, what I gave to Straits Times. Internationally, this is also happening. A lot of couples are having sex once a week. And actually, in a study that came out a couple of years ago, couples who have sex every 10 days are the most happy. So this is not mentioned. Instead, this focuses very much on the tone of negative. There's no positivity in this report whatsoever. So you don't have to believe me. I'm going to type the links to the articles below. I know they are not new. However, I've known this news from other research for some time, and I've seen this happen with my clients where they are having sex once a week. It's not that they don't want to; it's that they just can't make the time. Different body clocks. One is a morning person, one is a night person. Meaning one prefers to have sex in the morning, one prefers to have sex at night, but because of the scheduling of work, going to the gym, dropping off kids, for whatever reason, it's just very difficult to schedule it. So that was the reason why I said simplify. And so yeah, I'm going to drop the link below to the studies that I've seen, and hope it gives you a different perspective that, you know, things are not as terrible as this Straits Times article makes it sound based on this study. It actually has been very, very common in my work, and I have been seeing clients, working with clients for the last 10 years, coming to 11 years now, and things hasn't changed in this 10, 11 years. It hasn't changed. If anything, probably is worse because the cost of living, as you know, in the past few years, Singapore is known as like one of the most expensive cities in the world to live in. People are very stressed, and I know it's not like that outside of Singapore. And people who are less stressed economically do have better quality of life. I think this is why you keep hearing from people like they want to leave Singapore, they want to migrate, they want to travel, they want to work overseas. It's because they see, if they have the chance to travel, they see that it can be different, and there's a time and place for everything, taking all things into consideration, whether at this life stage in your life, whether you want to stay in Singapore, whether you want to strive for your career, there's a time and place for everything. So in order to have kids, sometimes people need to prioritize. So I do know of people who quit their jobs to focus on having a child, even though financially it's very, very tough. There are people who think of quitting their jobs so that they can even get pregnant, because it is very, very stressful. So there are people who quit their jobs, work part-time. I even make suggestions to my clients like, why don't you take like half a day on during the times that you know you're ovulating, so that you're not so stressed and you can actually give your body some time to unwind, and you'll be in a better mood. Maybe you take a nap and then you have more energy to have sex. So I even say things like that. Go on staycations, take half day off. A lot of people go away on holidays, thinking that the holiday will help them to unwind. But then by the time they go on the holiday, they are just so exhausted that they actually collapse. They collapse, so they don't even have sex. They just rest. Um, they're just so tired. Sometimes they just rest, literally just rest. So that's the kind of mental, emotional state that a lot of people are at. And so this is right why the whole popularity of mindfulness and meditation and breathing, coming back into your body, all the yoga, all this is taking on some popularity, because when things are really, really difficult and challenging, uh, you think that there's no choice, there's always a choice. You can still take back parts of your life. So another thing I suggest sometimes to my clients is, instead of going out for lunch with your colleagues and braiding the lunch crowd, how about bring your own lunch? And you can say it's leftover, so that you don't have to do the same thing with your colleagues all the time, that you can have some time to yourself to unwind, to take a little nap, so that when you go home you still have a little bit of energy to have sex with your partner. So I even say things like that to my clients, because that is how tired and stressed they are. I remember how I used to hate going for lunch with my colleagues, because if I'm not there, I know they will be gossiping about me. So I have to be there. But then when I'm there, the conversations that we have are so frivolous and so mind numbing that I just hated being there. And the worst part of working life for me at that time was lunchtime. Like, I didn't want to be there. I didn't enjoy being there. And I had to brave the crowds with them, and a lot of times they get to decide what they want to eat, and then I cannot control how crowded it is or how long the queue is. And so that's kind of what working life was for me. So there was time that I brought lunch to work, and it did help with my energy, and I did save money. So that is an idea you can think about. So this is Martha of Eros Coaching, sharing with you what I have to say about this Singapore study. And yeah, I see some of you watching this as this video. Okay, I haven't been looking at the comments, because what happens is, for some reason, the comments always come like very late on my video. Okay, I think it's not married women. It's more accurate for married women with, okay, you cannot say that, because um, I do work with clients who are not married, and it's more challenging when you're married, but it is also challenging for people who are not married. Sorry, not married with kids. Okay, anyway. Um, I work with them, so I know. Okay, so yeah, thanks for watching this video. This is Martha's unpublished Straits Times comments. Yeah, check out my work. That's eroscoaching.com, and I hope that there were some tips here and there for couples. I want you to know that you are not alone, and this is actually a really tough situation that you're in. So completely empathize, and I end up doing brainstorming sessions with clients about time management, and also better communication with couples. It's really not easy. So yeah, thanks for watching this video, and you feel free to post your comments below.